When political veteran Dr. Kizza Besigye was arrested in Nairobi alongside his aide Obeid Lutale on 16th November 2024, his close associates immediately got to know. They were in the Kenyan capital to attend the book launch of Martha Karua, Kenya's former Minister for Justice and opposition politician. Pressure mounted on the governments of both Kenya and Uganda, with the civil society demanding for their release. The Ugandan government eventually confirmed that the duo had been secretly returned to Uganda to face the law for crimes they had allegedly committed.
I believe we shall overcome someday.
Besigye and Lutale were first presented at the Makindye-based General Court-Martial by the military police on 20th November 2024 under tight security. Their families, friends, relatives and supporters who had camped at the court-martial's premises that morning warmly welcomed the duo and chanted defying songs.
Never, never surrender. We shall never, never, never surrender. We shall never.
At first, the military officers were reluctant to allow the families, friends, relatives and supporters of Besigye and Lutale to access courtroom.
They have stopped lawyers, they have stopped relatives, they have stopped friends, they have stopped everyone has been stopped accessing.
But later opened the court door. The courtroom was packed to capacity. The proceedings was chaired by Brigadier General Freeman Mugabe, the head of the General Court-Martial. When the proceedings began, Besigye and Lutale refused to be tried by the military court on grounds that they are civilians.
I am not a member of the UPDF. And I believe that I should be tried by a civil court if I am suspected of having committed an offense.
Their submission sparked a long argument between defense lawyers and the prosecution on whether the duo could be tried by the military court or not.
The law talks about an officer or a member of UPDF who is in actual service. And it's on record, it's not in dispute that the accused persons are not members of the UPDF. Therefore, they are not amenable to charges of that nature, which are service offenses.
This court has looked at section 117 G and H of the UPDF Act and finds that the accused persons are subject to military law.
In the end, the charges were read.
Colonel retired Dr. Kizza Besigye, Haj Obeid Lutale, and others still at large between October 2023 and November 2024, while in cities to wit Geneva in Switzerland, Athens in Greece, and Nairobi in Kenya, held meetings aimed at soliciting for logistical support and identifying military targets in Uganda with intent to prejudice the security of the defense forces.
But the lawyers of Kizza Besigye and Obeid Lutale insisted their clients were in the wrong court. At the end of the day, the General Court-Martial decided to remand the duo to Luzira prison until 2nd December 2024. When Besigye and Lutale were returned to the General Court-Martial for the second time, 12 days later, some of their lawyers, including the lead lawyer Martha Karua, were denied entry into the courtroom.
The humble request is that they are allowed to come in with those phones so that they are able to represent the client effectively.
But prosecution stated that only 4 out of nearly 50 defense lawyers had met all the requirements to stand for Kizza Besigye and Obeid Lutale. In fact, even the lead counsel Martha Karua was still struggling to get a temporary practicing certificate given that she's a Kenyan citizen. Amidst that argument, defense lawyers requested to have some time so they could interact with their clients privately.
We need a private space where we can interact with Lutale and Besigye and advise them on confidential issues.
Besigye and Lutale instructed their lawyers to fast-track the application of temporary practicing certificate of Martha Karua. Court was again adjourned.
Colonel retired Dr. Kizza and your colleague, your case is adjourned to 10th December 2024 for mention and ruling on issues raised by Road Mayor.
Besigye and Lutale returned to the court-martial for the third time on 10th December 2024. The General Court-Martial was supposed to rule on the issues raised by defense lawyers on its legality to try civilians. There was a lot of back and forth arguments between officers of the court-martial and the defense team.
No, you can't direct me. You are not court.
Counsel Kizza, can you listen?
We have rules of this court. It is not going to be like a political rally. Read section 169 and section 212. Listen, my advice to this court is final.
No, it is not. It is not.
And it binds you.
No. You are not a member of court.
Counsel Kizza.
He is not a member of court.
Besigye and Lutale were again remanded to Luzira prison until January 7th, 2025. That decision came after the chairperson of the General Court-Martial agreed to postpone the hearing over a request by the defense team, who cited an incomplete legal team. As Besigye and Lutale's case was ongoing on January 7th, 2025, chaos erupted in the General Court-Martial when an orderly refused to admit defense lawyer Aaron Kizza into the bar. This prompted the lawyer to shout at the orderly, demanding entry. However, the court, whose proceedings were disrupted, ordered Kizza's immediate arrest and subsequent detention.
This court finds the accused's conduct in contempt of this court and finds Kizza Aaron guilty of the offense of contempt of court and is hereby sentenced to 9 months in prison to be served in Chitaria government prison.
A week later, the court-martial introduced a new charge of treachery against Dr. Kizza Besigye and Obeid Lutale. The court also amended the charge sheet and introduced a third accused person identified as Captain Dennis Ola, a serving military officer attached to the Army's Armored Brigade. But Besigye and Lutale objected to taking the plea in the amended charge sheet. Nonetheless, the court-martial ruled that all the objections raised by defense in regard to its legality to try civilians were null and void. The court-martial also declined to transfer the Besigye and Lutale case to the Constitutional Court as requested by the defense lawyers.
This court has jurisdiction in the case. Accordingly, the objections raised are hereby dismissed and the accused person should take plea. This court declines to make a reference as prayed by counsel for the accused.
Besigye and Lutale lawyers resolved to appeal that decision. Court was yet again adjourned to 3rd February 2025. But that marked the 6th and last time Besigye and Lutale appeared before the General Court-Martial, because the Supreme Court on 31st January 2025 in a landmark ruling made it clear that the General Court-Martial has no mandate to try civilians.
These people do not have the training to be judice officers. And they try treason, they try all sorts of things. All charges or ongoing criminal trials or pending trials before the courts-martial involving civilians must immediately cease and be transferred.
Dr. Kizza Besigye and Obeid Lutale's case was transferred to civilian court, where they have been appearing since that historical decision by the Supreme Court. They have been in prison for more than 1 year. Daniel, KIBET, NTV.